I'm 29 years old. I was born at Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago on March the 7th, 1995. So was Lucas Bennett. We've been neighbors and best friends our entire lives. Last week, I found a document in my mother's safe, a contract dated March 7th, 1995, signed by both our parents. They made a pact the day we were born, a promise that would control our entire future, and neither of us knew about it until now. Please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment if you want to know how this revelation changed everything. Growing up in Chicago's North Side neighborhood of Lincoln Park, Lucas and I were inseparable from the moment we could walk. Our families lived in adjacent brownstones on a tree-lined street just blocks from the lake. My name is Emma Sullivan, and I work as a clinical psychologist specializing in family therapy, an ironic career choice, considering what I've recently discovered about my own family. Lucas became an architectural engineer, designing sustainable buildings across the Midwest. He inherited his father's eye for structure and his mother's artistic sensibility, creating spaces that were both beautiful and functional. Our parents, the Sullivans and the Bennetts, had what everyone called a special bond. My father, James, and Lucas's father Richard had met in college and remained close through medical and architecture school respectively. Our mothers, Catherine and Margaret, became fast friends when our fathers introduced them. Sunday dinners alternated between our homes without fail. Thanksgiving was always at the Bennetts, Christmas at ours. Summer vacations meant 2 weeks at adjacent lake houses in Door County, Wisconsin. We celebrated every birthday, graduation, and milestone together. Lucas and I navigated childhood side by side. We attended the same private elementary school, though there was an excellent public school just down the street. We joined the same summer camps and after-school programs. In high school, when I developed an interest in psychology, Lucas's mother, a therapist herself, arranged for me to shadow her colleagues. When Lucas showed aptitude for drawing, my father connected him with an architect friend. Our parents always seemed particularly invested in our friendship, making comments that now seem suspect. "You two just fit together perfectly," my mother would say, watching us study together. "The universe brought your births together for a reason," Lucas's mother often remarked. "Some connections are just meant to be," my father would philosophize during dinner. I never thought to question these statements. They seemed like typical parental sentimentality, not the calculated reinforcement I now understand them to be. Though Lucas and I were never romantic, there was always an unspoken tension between us, a comfort that exceeded ordinary friendship. We dated other people throughout high school and college, but always remained in each other's lives. Somehow those other relationships never lasted. Looking back, I can see the subtle ways our parents discouraged external attachments. When I dated Michael in college, my parents never invited him for holidays. When Lucas got serious with Heather during his master's program, his parents continuously pointed out their fundamental differences. We both settled in Chicago after graduate school, ending up with condos in the same building. Another coincidence, orchestrated by parents who had found great investment properties. Everything changed 3 weeks ago. My mother was downsizing, selling the family home where I'd grown up to move into a smaller condo after my father's passing last year. I'd taken a week off to help her sort through 30 years of accumulated memories. "Emma, can you go through the study?" she asked one afternoon. "The important papers are in the safe behind your father's diplomas." I'd never known about any safe. Moving the framed medical degrees revealed a small wall safe, which my mother opened with a combination she recited from memory. Inside were property deeds, insurance policies, my father's will, and at the bottom, an ornate leather portfolio I'd never seen before. "What's this?" I asked, lifting the heavy folder. My mother's face changed, a flash of something, alarm, guilt, crossing her features. "Just old papers," she said too quickly. "Nothing important." Her reaction made me curious. Once alone, I opened the portfolio to discover a formal legal document on heavy parchment. The heading read, "Covenant of Future Union," and was dated March 7th, 1995, the day Lucas and I were born. My heart began racing as I scanned the first paragraph. The undersigned parties, being of sound mind and united purpose, do hereby establish their solemn intention regarding the future union of their children, born this day at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. 4 signatures graced the bottom. My parents, James and Catherine Sullivan, and Lucas's parents, Richard and Margaret Bennett. The document had been notarized by someone from the hospital's legal department and witnessed by a Dr. Helena Winters, identified as the Family Foundation's program director. As I read further, the blood drained from my face. The document outlined a formal agreement between our families. Lucas and I were to be raised in close proximity, with our parents ensuring we developed a strong bond. Our educations, social circles, and even career paths would be harmoniously guided. The ultimate goal, stated explicitly in paragraph 4, was our marriage before our 30th birthdays, at which point we would jointly inherit both families' considerable assets, including my father's medical practice and the Bennett's architectural firm. Most shocking was the final clause. If either Lucas or I rejected the covenant after being informed of its existence, all inherited interests would be redirected to Northwestern Memorial Hospital's Family Foundation. With our 30th birthdays less than a year away, this revelation couldn't have been more perfectly timed. My hands shook as I refolded the document. 29 years of orchestrated coincidences suddenly made perfect sense. Our natural friendship, our compatible career choices, our convenient living arrangements, all carefully engineered by parents playing gods with our lives. That evening, I confronted my mother in the kitchen. Without speaking, I placed the covenant on the counter between us. Her face fell as recognition dawned. "You weren't supposed to find that yet," she said quietly, confirming my worst suspicions. "We were going to tell you both after the annual family dinner next month." "Tell us?" I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. "Tell us that our entire lives have been manipulated? That every coincidence was planned? That you expect us to marry because of some contract you signed before we could even breathe on our own?" "It wasn't like that, Emma," she protested, sinking into a chair. "We never forced anything. We just created opportunities." Over the next 2 hours, my mother revealed the full story. Both she and my father had come from traditional families where marriages were often arranged. When they discovered the Bennetts shared similar cultural values, they formed an instant bond. The hospital's Family Foundations program, an unofficial initiative run by Dr. Winters, had connected several like-minded families with children born around the same time. "We truly believed we were doing what was best," my mother insisted. "We saw how the modern dating world was becoming. All those apps, all that heartbreak. We wanted to spare you that and give you a foundation of friendship first." "By manipulating every aspect of our lives?" I demanded. "Did you ever consider what we might want?" "Of course," she said, though her eyes betrayed uncertainty. "But we also understood that young people often don't know what's good for them. Your father and I had an arranged marriage component, and we were deeply happy." As she spoke, I recalled countless moments that suddenly made sense. How my semester abroad program mysteriously lost my application. How Lucas's job offer in Seattle fell through when his father suddenly needed him at the firm. How my serious boyfriend in college received an unexpected fellowship across the country. "Did you sabotage Jason's graduate school applications?" I asked, remembering how devastated I'd been when my college boyfriend moved to California. My mother couldn't meet my eyes. "Your father may have made a call to a colleague on the admissions committee," she admitted. "But Jason wasn't right for you, Emma. He was too impulsive, too unstructured. That wasn't your decision to make." I shouted, years of manipulated choices suddenly crashing down on me. "Does Lucas know about any of this?" "No," she said quietly. "Neither do Richard and Margaret know you found the covenant. We had planned to reveal everything together." I left my mother's house in a daze, the document tucked into my bag. For 3 days, I avoided everyone's calls, my mother's, the Bennetts, and especially Lucas's. I needed time to process this betrayal, to decide whether to tell Lucas at all. On the 4th day, my doorbell rang persistently until I finally answered. Lucas stood there, concern etched on his familiar face. "Emma, what's going on?" "You're not answering calls or texts. Your mom called my parents, everyone's worried." I stepped back wordlessly, letting him into my condo. We'd been in and out of each other's homes our entire lives. But now, everything felt different, tainted by the knowledge of manipulation. "Something happened," I said, my voice strained. Something I found at Mom's. I handed him the covenant. His expression shifted as he read, confusion giving way to disbelief, then anger. When he looked up, his blue eyes were stormy with betrayal. "They signed away our freedom the day we were born," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. 29 years of lies. We spent the entire night dissecting our shared history, identifying moments of parental interference we'd never questioned. Lucas recalled his father's sudden opposition to his architectural internship in Europe, a concern that evaporated once I had committed to a local practicum instead of a research position in Boston. I remembered how my parents had discouraged my relationship with my college boyfriend, while subtly praising Lucas's kindness and reliability. "Remember when we both got accepted to those different graduate programs?" Lucas asked. "And suddenly both schools had funding issues with our scholarships until we chose the Chicago programs? And how they bought us condos in the same building as investments?" I added, making sure we'd be in constant proximity. The evidence was overwhelming. Our parents had engineered not just our friendship, but our entire life trajectories. They had closed doors and opened others, always guiding us toward their predetermined outcome: marriage and the consolidation of family assets. But what about us? I finally asked the question hanging between us. What do we actually feel for each other without all this manipulation? Lucas ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I'd seen thousands of times throughout our lives. "I don't know, Em. I've always cared about you, you know that. But is what I feel friendship, habit, or something more? And how can we ever know what's real and what's been engineered? Is any feeling real when it's engineered?" I whispered. The following day, we sought professional advice from my colleague, Dr. Adrienne Foster, who specialized in both family therapy and legal matters. After reviewing the document, she gave us her assessment. "This covenant isn't legally binding regarding forcing marriage," she explained. "No court would enforce that provision. However, the inheritance clauses are potentially enforceable. Your parents have the right to establish conditions for their assets. So we either marry or lose everything?" Lucas asked incredulously. "Essentially, yes," Dr. Foster confirmed. "And we're talking significant assets. Your father's medical practice alone, Emma, is worth millions. And Lucas, your family's architectural firm is equally valuable." The financial implications were staggering. Both our careers were intertwined with family businesses. I had planned to eventually take over my father's practice, incorporating my family therapy specialization. Lucas was already a partner at Bennett Designs, positioned to become principal architect after his father's retirement. Walking away meant starting completely fresh professionally. More devastating was the emotional impact. Every memory, every feeling, every choice now seemed suspect. Had I chosen psychology because I genuinely loved it, or because my mother had subtly guided me toward it? Did Lucas truly love architecture, or had it been planted in him through years of casual exposure? "We need to find out how deep this goes," Lucas said determinedly. "Starting with this Family Foundations program." We began investigating, searching online for any mention of Northwestern Memorial's Family Foundations. We found nothing official, but on a parenting forum, we discovered a thread from people who called themselves Covenant Kids, adults who had discovered similar arrangements from the same era. One post particularly stood out. "Northwestern Memorial, Chicago, 1990s, Dr. Winters. You're not alone. There are dozens of us." The program was unofficial, but real. We arranged to meet with a woman named Sophia, whose parents had created a similar covenant with another family in 1994. Over coffee, she shared her story. "I discovered mine when I was 25, she explained. "Ryan and I had been neighbors and friends our whole lives, just like you two. When I found out, I was already engaged to someone else." "What did you do?" I asked. "I broke my engagement," she said simply. Not because of the covenant, but because finding it made me realize I'd been fighting my feelings for Ryan for years. "We're married now with twins." "So you fulfilled the covenant," Lucas observed. "Yes, but on our terms," Sophia clarified. "We took 2 years to date properly, to make sure what we felt was real. We had our parents rewrite the inheritance conditions with no marriage requirement. That was our line in the sand." Her story gave us both perspective. The covenant itself wasn't the problem. It was the secrecy, the manipulation, the lack of agency. We decided to confront all four parents together. The meeting took place at the Bennett's home the following Sunday. Lucas and I arrived first, setting the covenant prominently on the coffee table. When our parents arrived, their expressions upon seeing the document confirmed everything. "So you found it," Lucas's father said, not asking a question but acknowledging a fact. "Yes," I replied coldly. "We found your 29-year conspiracy." The four older adults exchanged glances, a silent communication honed over decades of shared secrets. My mother spoke first. "We always planned to tell you before your 30th birthdays," she insisted. "We weren't going to force anything." "Force?" Lucas's voice rose. "You've been forcing things our entire lives. Every school, every friendship, every relationship, all manipulated." His mother reached for his hand, which he pulled away. "We never forced anything, Lucas. We just helped destiny along." "By sabotaging Emma's application to study abroad?" Lucas challenged. "By mysteriously getting my girlfriend Melissa a dream opportunity in California right when we were getting serious?" Their silence confirmed these suspicions. "Did you arrange for Jason to get that fellowship?" I asked my mother directly. She looked down. "Your father made a call. But Emma, that boy was wrong for you. He had no direction, no stability." "That wasn't your choice to make," I exploded. "We deserved to write our own story." For nearly 3 hours, we unraveled the full extent of their manipulation. They had influenced school admissions, orchestrated chance meetings, subtly discouraged relationships they didn't approve of, and guided our career choices toward the family businesses. They had purchased our condos in the same building as investment properties, then offered them to us at family discounts. Even my father's recent decision to name me director of his practice upon his death, a position I'd been proud to earn and had been part of the covenant's implementation. "Love should be chosen, not contracted," I told them, fighting back tears of frustration. "We come from traditions where marriages were arranged for generations," Lucas's father argued. "Those marriages were often more successful than modern love matches." "Times have changed," Lucas countered. "We're not living in the old country. We're Americans in the 21st century." "Which is precisely why we tried to blend tradition with modern freedom," my mother insisted. "We never would have forced you to marry if you truly disliked each other. We just made sure you had the opportunity to form a bond." "By eliminating all other options," I said bitterly. Gradually, the full story emerged. Both families had cultural backgrounds where arranged marriages were common. My father's Irish Indian heritage, and Mr. Bennett's Lebanese ancestry. They had connected through the hospital's prenatal program, and bonded over these shared values. When they discovered their babies would be born on the same day, a boy and a girl, they viewed it as significant. Dr. Helena Winters, their prenatal counselor, had apparently facilitated several such arrangements for families with similar backgrounds. The program wasn't official hospital policy, but operated quietly under the guise of family counseling. The contracts were drawn up by a sympathetic hospital attorney and kept confidential. "We truly believed we were doing what was best," Lucas's mother said tearfully. "Modern dating is so broken, so painful. We wanted to spare you that." "By taking away our choices?" Lucas challenged. "By lying to us for 29 years? "We never lied," my mother protested weakly. "We just didn't tell the whole truth." By the end of the confrontation, our parents were remorseful, but still defended their intentions. They claimed they would have abandoned the plan if Lucas and I had shown genuine disinterest in each other. They insisted the inheritance clause was primarily to ensure we gave the relationship a fair chance, rather than to control us financially. "We're sorry for the secrecy," my mother finally conceded, "but we're not sorry for trying to secure your happiness." "Happiness built on manipulation isn't real happiness," I told her, standing to leave. "Lucas and I need time to figure out what's real and what's been engineered in our relationship." In the weeks that followed, Lucas and I faced an impossible dilemma. The inheritance clause meant potentially walking away from financial security in the family businesses we'd both worked toward. Beyond money, we risked permanently damaging relationships with the parents we still loved despite their betrayal. Most complex was sorting through our feelings for each other. We'd always shared a deep bond. But was it friendship, romantic attraction, or programmed attachment? After much soul-searching, we acknowledged mutual feelings we'd never fully explored, always assuming our friendship was too valuable to risk with romance. "I've always cared about you," Lucas admitted during one of our long conversations. "But now I question everything. If we try being together, will it be because we truly want it, or because we've been conditioned to want it? And if we walk away from each other," I countered, "would that just be rebellion against their manipulation rather than our true feelings?" We sought help from a therapist unconnected to either family. Dr. Rivera specialized in autonomy issues and helped us separate authentic feelings from conditioned responses. Through guided exploration, we began to identify our true desires apart from parental expectations. "The real question isn't what your parents wanted," Dr. Rivera explained. "It's what you want, knowing everything you now know." We also consulted another attorney about the inheritance clause. To our surprise, he suggested a potential compromise. "You could fulfill the business succession aspects without the marriage component," he advised. "Create a partnership agreement that allows you both to inherit and manage the family businesses collaboratively, regardless of your personal relationship status." This opened a new possibility, honoring the professional legacy our families had built while maintaining personal autonomy. 4 months after discovering the covenant, we reached our decision. We invited both families to dinner at a neutral restaurant and shared our choice. "We've decided to reject the covenant as written," I began firmly. "We refuse to have our personal lives dictated by an agreement made without our knowledge or consent." The pain on our parents' faces was evident, but we continued. "However," Lucas added, "we recognize the value of the family businesses and legacies you've built. We're willing to accept responsibility for those, under new terms." We presented them with a modified agreement our attorney had drafted. It separated the business succession from any requirement of marriage or romantic relationship between us. We would collaboratively manage the family enterprises while maintaining complete autonomy in our personal lives. "As for our relationship," I explained, "we're starting fresh. No pressure, no expectations, no manipulation. We're dating," Lucas said simply, "like normal people do, getting to know each other romantically without external pressure." Our parents were initially resistant to modifying the covenant, but faced with the alternative, our complete rejection of both the agreement and potentially them, they reluctantly consented. "We only wanted what was best for you," my mother said tearfully. "Then respect our choices now," I responded. "That's what's best for us." The next 6 months brought profound changes. Lucas and I began dating properly for the first time in our 29 years of knowing each other. We started with coffee dates and dinners, gradually exploring romantic territory that felt both familiar and entirely new. We moved deliberately, conscious of not rushing into something just because it had been planned for us. We also established firmer boundaries with our parents, insisting on transparency in all family matters moving forward. Though relations remained strained, we began the slow process of rebuilding trust. Professionally, we implemented our succession plan, with Lucas taking a larger role at Bennett Designs and me assuming directorship of my father's practice. Working together as business partners while navigating a new personal relationship presented challenges, but we addressed them openly. On a crisp autumn day 6 months after discovering the covenant, Lucas and I walked along Lake Michigan, watching sailboats return to harbor. The lake stretched before us, vast and beautiful in the golden afternoon light. "Do you ever wonder if we'd have found our way to each other without the covenant?" Lucas asked, his hand warm in mine. "I think about that all the time," I admitted. "But I've realized something important. It doesn't matter how we started. What matters is that we're choosing each other now, with open eyes and complete freedom." He stopped walking and turned to face me. "I've cared about you my whole life, Emma. Not because our parents engineered it, but because you're you." I think I've always known that, but was afraid to risk our friendship. "I felt the same way," I confessed. "Maybe that's the one thing they got right, creating the circumstances for us to know each other completely before falling in love." That evening, we invited both sets of parents to dinner. The tension of previous months had eased, replaced by a cautious new dynamic. We presented them with the original covenant, now framed behind glass. "We're keeping this as a reminder," I explained. "Not of manipulation, but of the importance of allowing children to make their own choices." Lucas nodded. "We're grateful for the closeness you fostered between our families. But real love requires freedom to choose. We needed to find our way to each other authentically." My mother wiped away tears. "You were always meant to find each other. We just overstepped in trying to ensure it." "Children aren't pawns in parents' plans," I said gently. "But we understand you thought you were doing what was best." "We hope you can forgive us someday," Lucas's father added. "We never meant to hurt you." "We're working on forgiveness," Lucas assured them. "It will take time, but we value family too much to walk away." Today, 1 year after finding the covenant, Lucas and I are engaged. Our choice, made freely with full knowledge of our history. We've combined our professional strengths to establish a family wellness center that bridges both our disciplines. The practice addresses physical, emotional, and environmental well-being, incorporating my psychological training and Lucas's architectural vision. The framed covenant hangs in my office as a reminder that authenticity beats obligation, that breaking free is sometimes necessary, even from those who love us. That true love doesn't need a contract. It only needs the freedom to grow naturally. Our 30th birthday celebration last month was different from any our parents had envisioned when they signed that document in 1995. Instead of fulfilling their planned marriage timeline, we celebrated our autonomy and the authentic love we've chosen for ourselves. As Lucas likes to say, they wrote the beginning of our story, but we're writing the rest ourselves. Would you fulfill a pact your parents made before you could even talk? Can love be real when it's arranged? Leave your comment below. Subscribe for more emotional stories. Share if you believe everyone deserves to choose their own path.